Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE and welcome to the Dummies Cauldron.
Hey, this is your girl BMORE, and today we are going to talk about the rising signs and zodiacs that occurred on the full moon of Capricorn, July 10th. So, how to use this reading? This reading is meant for sun, moon, and risings. If you don't know your rising, you can always look up the sun and the moon. If you want to know what your rising is, you plug that into a birth chart calculator. This is calculated for tropical, not sidereal. That being said, if you have any other questions, you can always contact me. All right. So we are just going to jump right into it. So the first rising we are going to do is Aries. For my Aries rising. So Aries, this is a very emotional time for you. This will center around your fourth house. And so you're going to be dealing with things around domestic stability and security right now. So you may have to even focus on possibly relocating or dealing with career versus home responsibilities. Overall, it is going to bring awareness to parts of the home and domestic life that need to be taken care of. We also have the 4th and the 10th. And so maybe parents and traditional values or traditional maybe upbringings play a center. Maybe the father is authoritative or was authoritative. Maybe there can be a thing where there's a deciding to rebel against authority or the established order of your home. And security may be found in the parents, or parents may play a role in your career. Now, like I said, it's either career versus home, but sometimes I see people stay home versus actually go out into the career because, you know, how things are. But there can also be issues with having competition or certain criticisms, and maybe more outgoing at home versus in the public. Now, I'm not saying you can't be popular or it can't be easy for you, but there's like a more reserved nature. So it might be just easier for you to find like a career or work from home in general. Now, this also can create an impulsive, naive type of energy, especially if you feel like there's a form of suppression, which can create aggression for you at this time. There can be also a need for looking for mutual emotional support that could be rebuffed at this time. You know, now you could be also a hard worker, you know, really looking for the limelight, but also only valuing the idea of hard work that is seen as like valid work. So that can also be another caveat to the work home dilemma around how much we're managing in the home. And since you only value hard work and somehow it's tied to your possibly ego and or attention seeking through career, that can also create more strain. This can also trigger, like I said, the Neptune, Saturn, and Chiron square. So it also gives issues with that Mars in the 6th house. So it's good that you mind your temper. You want to work hard, but there can also be illnesses that pop up now. Learn to have proper health regimens and how much effort you can put into things. There can also be conflicts with coworkers, headaches, accidents, fevers, and burns. You need to learn your priorities, learn cooperation, figure out your issues with your inferiority versus arrogant issues, and try to be careful of being too extra and over exaggerated. Try to have realistic ambitions. Be careful of deception, especially due to a false sense of integrity that you may project onto other people, and it may be hard to live up to. There can be issues of trust and abandonment and having to face yourself through contemplation and healing at this time. Now, here we also see that there may be like a will versus desire issue for you, where it can create strain on your endeavors because you're unsure of the quality or the values that you have right now, and you may be tempted to overcompensate, and it can make you arrogant, like I talked about before. And so we have to manage our anger and our resentment and actually be dependable. I would also highly recommend for you to go listen to the Mars in Virgo and make adjustments where we talked about where Mars in Virgo is for you in a video that I did prior. Go look it up and see where we have to make adjustments, because it will help to calm down a lot of this energy. And if we don't make adjustments here, I'm going to be quite frank, get ready to have more drama. I'm going to be really honest. Like, it actually opens up more drama and more all of this chaotic stuff. It may even open up the idea of false friends, especially since Aries tend to be, for the most part, pretty friendly type of people, even though they can be like very actionary, but friends are important. So this can actually open up some friendship drama for you. So I would highly recommend you to go check that out. Okay. Good luck, my Aries. Alrighty. Now for my Tauruses. Here, this moon is going to occur in your third house. And so this will be a bad time for travel, contact with the law, or in-laws if you're married or, in relationships. Matters dealing with education or just the law in general. You really should be careful about what you write or what you say, because there will be a lot of misinterpretation and overall confusion. What you said will not be conveyed well. What you write will not be conveyed well. All legal matters will be stalled. And a lot of your thoughts are just very emotional at this time. Try to take it easy, okay? So here we have your third house in the ninth, because the moon is the ruler of your third house. And so dreams and imagination are very important to you. You're more open-minded. This could be good for practical expressions like writing, especially if you want to do something like fantasy, because the third house is the house of communication and the ninth house is also a house of publication, and so is the third to a certain degree. So we could be writing about ninth house matters like far off mystical places, like a fantasy book or some fantasy work. Or, I don't know, maybe y'all pull out some Wattpad and do some fan fiction. So this is also good for travel, religion, and philosophy. This is a placement where it can make easy discussions. It's easy to have these discussions, but remember, because this is also a full moon here, yes, the discussions are easy to get into, but it's also easy to be misunderstood. You see how that works? Very tricky. Now, this also is linked to foreign places, languages. Maybe there can be separations from relatives because we're not very tied down at this time. So we're going from this place to next place. So it's hard to keep track. Religion is also centered around maybe like philosophies you were also taught in early education or a younger person, young child. So whatever religious or philosophical beliefs can also come up now from, younger years. You may also struggle with interacting with people because of the whole communication thing, and maybe you feel like you'll never ever reach your goals or your dreams and your ambitions. Now, the dreams are insightful at this time, so I would try to tell you just pay attention to this. Maybe this is an issue between trying to prosper versus reflection. There can also be an overall lack of activity and a lot of emotional problems. It's really hard to make friends. We're very moody and emotional at this time, Taurus. The subconscious feels like a lot of isolation. You might be drawn to institutions or trying to do work behind the scenes. You're very talented at this time, but there also may be forms with escapism, expenses, gains versus losses, the good deeds versus the bad deeds. And we have to figure out what do we do and what do we set in motion. Okay, because this can trigger sometimes the idea of misery, undoings, how lucky we are, and just really dealing with that. This might be even having to deal with if we had a proper education, proper teaching, or if we have to be forced to teach ourselves something. And I'm not saying like this is going to be all bad, because this does deal with like prosperity, generosity versus the father, versus how introspective you are in maybe your upbringing, philosophies, religion, like whatever it is, because it's ninth house matter and ninth house skills into all of that. This also could tie into college too. Maybe this is centered around, will I go to college to expand my education? Or, maybe you dropped out of college and maybe it's an unfulfilled dream. Like a lot of this can go into like subdued talents, untapped potentials. It's maybe too expensive for you to go. All of these things kind of go into it. But yeah, my best advice for Taurus is to have some introspection and really do the work. Don't try to avoid looking inside. Okay. Now, for my Taurus sons, this is a good time to deal with the public and women. Maybe you'll look good and you'll feel good. This can also have you look for like mutual, loving, supportive relationships, and things can mostly go smoothly outside of like the issues with communication. Okay, because it'll make you social and confident. and it's great for doing hobbies or possibly looking for like your goals, investments, or education. But I would really recommend you to focus your energy. For Taurus moons, again, popularity, ease, but maybe some apathetic nature. I would tell you to watch conflicts with women. I think the Taurus moons would be more prone to conflicts with women, or just arguing with anyone in the public. Maybe you arguing with some family members too, but just keep it easy, because Taurus moons can be a little fussy right now, even more than just the Taurus sign in general. It's just very fussy at the moment. They can also, like I said, be subconscious isolations. Emotions can create carelessness and a high-strung nature. Issues with debts, issues with children. Maybe this came from your philosophy, but it is hard to build your own feelings and convictions. You know, you want to build them, but sometimes it could be a little hard under this transit. You don't want external influence on your beliefs. Again, just maybe even like not wanting a teacher, not wanting anything, and this could stem from your dad. Maybe, you know, he worked a lot, maybe he wasn't around, or maybe you felt like you didn't have any guidance growing up, etc. Writings also could be a thing, like writing in private, deep research, medicine. But again, like I said, a lot of self-doubt around your principles, your beliefs. Some people, they will look for, if they struggle with introspection, maybe they go to therapy for self-discovery. But yeah, you can seem outgoing, but there's like a social thing there, maybe even flightiness, but on the inside there's a lot of reserved natures. And so long travels, foreign travels, again, learning, philosophy, you know, dealing with metaphysics like meditation, spirituality, and try to be more open to life. And that maybe even give you some direction about what your beliefs are, what your philosophies are, what you're going to do with education, or your father, or a teacher, or if you're going to write something, even down to your career, whatever you're going to do. But it'll give you guidance. The last thing I would say is definitely check out the Virgo and Mars audio that I did, because this also will have to create adjustments in self-expression and dealing with issues around dating and who we're dating, socializing, hobbies, and possibly even investments. I would tell Taurus to go check that out, because that's where we have to make adjustments, because if not, it would give us relationship problems, open competition, you know, issues with pursuing our desires. Okay, good luck, Taurus. Alrighty, now for my Geminis, this is occurring in your second house, and so this will center around income. And so, you know, maybe your emotional security is linked to financial security under this influence. Try not to emotionally spend, only spend what you can. There can also be delays in income, or paying for something, or dealing with money. I would say it could be issues with credits and loans. Your goal is to learn how to stabilize finances, plan, budget, save, do whatever you need to do to be responsible, do whatever you need to do to be stable. Now, here, and we have the moon in the 8th house. So there can be income via banking, insurance, politics, and being able to handle others' resources. There's a need or support to achieve aims. Sex can also play a part, because it's the 8th house theme. So sexuality or sex can also help you make a living at this time, or 8th house thing. So like sex, death, surgery, insurance, you name it. Okay. So, or you can achieve these security. You can achieve your aims through security and your personal values. Okay. Inheritance can be a theme, whether you either get an inheritance or it's just denied to you. I think that really just depends on how things are aspected in your chart. Values can change, especially when you use the 8th house for transformation, because 8th house is other people's support rather than your own personal values and what you actually own. So resources are clear, and priorities change with understanding of life, death, and survival, because that is the 8th house. The 8th house deals with life, death, survival, things like that. And the value of standing on your own feet versus partners or people offering you strength. I would tell you to take advantage of your own strengths. You will still get the help from friends. You will still get the help of group and the support in general, or maybe group investing. This can be a goal-oriented time now. Do things not just for pleasure, but you also can do things to achieve things. Now, Again, like I said, learning to stand on your own and knowing when and when not to get that support, because you still can get support. But there is something powerful about, knowing what you have to work with, again, very goal oriented. And I know this is going to be crazy because most of the time, people see Geminis as kind of like playful and stuff. So for them to like really put pleasure to the side and really try to use it to achieve, this is good. You can really get some stuff done. This is also great for research. People who are into like mysticism, occultism, doing long-term goals. This can also be where you can sometimes black out pleasure, or sexual encounters can be also linked to feeling loved or needed. So like either we're blacking out pleasure altogether, or the pleasure is blocked if we're not feeling appreciated. Again, this could trigger the Mars and K2 in the 4th house, which dealing with success or being a loner. I would tell you to check out the Mars and Virgo video that I put, because that's where we have to make adjustments for Gemini. In order to make those dreams come true, you might have to make some adjustments at home. You may have to make some adjustments with the mother to really get where you want to go. Gemini sun, this can make you adjust emotionally to your emotional needs versus your conscious will. There could be health issues. If not, there can be health issues if you really give into overwhelming demands on your time and energy. There can also be romantic rejection due to possibly rose-colored glasses that you have or how you look at people. Gemini moons, they can be emotionally split nature, whether you can stay or go, social ups and downs, or basically being social or socially upbeat and having little to no willpower. This can also create sickness, issues with mom and the women, and feeling possibly insecure. Okay, hang in there, Gemini moons. That is pretty much it for Geminis. Okay, good luck. Okay, now for my Cancers. My Cancers, this will be occurring in your 7th house. So the full moon occurring in your 7th house, you have to listen to other people's viewpoints and learn compromise when necessary. This will actually benefit your relationship. There can also be challenges in regards to important issues. Maybe someone tries to oppose your plans, and maybe you'll take that more personal than normal. We also have like agreements or contracts being blocked at this time, whether it's like a marriage agreement or engagement or just even business. That can be very challenging at this time and very triggering, and you'll take it more personal. This is your 1st house lord going into the 7th. So you are a people person. You need the appreciation and approval from your partners. That is also why this is devastating if something falls through. Now, this also trigger open competitors. Now, this can also trigger you to be competitive, argumentative, and really hard to get along with. This is a great placement for sales, PR, or doing mediation work. There can be constant upsets, which can also trigger you to say, never mind, I want to be single. I don't want to work with anyone. And, doing things like that, which is a hard kind of shift, because with this placement, you really don't want to be alone. Okay. So this is also a placement for public recognition in politics, entertainment, or arts, or anything where you are the center stage at this time. Now, there's 2 ways this can kind of go down. On average, more often than not, a partner is helpful in your career, promoting or pushing you further. But because we have Saturn playing a role in some of the dynamics, you may want to randomly just prove yourself that you can achieve without the help of anyone. Or maybe you feel like you want to work very hard to make your marriage or relationships a success. Or you want to go out of your way to marry or partner with people who are successful in their own right. Okay, and this makes for a romantic nature, making money by way of partners, and maybe more than one relationship. Maybe you want to conquer your adversaries in competition, maybe through love and career. Now, there's a desire to help others, maybe have a good relationship with your mom, and this could trigger, like I said, the Mars and Virgo, especially since we're somehow mixing love, career, appreciation, or wanting to be seen in the public in a certain way, with all these other things. So this can actually end up triggering that Mars and Virgo in the 3rd house, which gave some of you some sibling issues, especially with the dynamics of the whole mom and family thing. The Cancer moons, this could be a little bit extra moody time, sensitive, being more susceptible to slights. I would tell you to postpone any type of discussions, especially if you feel like you can't really have it with a clear head, or you feel like the other person is like not clear-headed or cool-head, because cool heads will prevail, but I would just skip it. Cancer Suns, again, emotions versus identity, life issues, maybe desires are there, unresolved issues that we may have to deal with. Overall, I don't think this is overtly horrible, but it may have you question some of your relatives or family dynamics. That's all. Good luck, my Cancers, okay? Now for my Leo risings. This will be occurring in 12th house. And so a full moon in the 12th house also triggers gossip and rumors. Hidden matters and unknown enemies can come to light. You should be cautious with medication and chemical substances. Also make rest and relaxation a priority. It's possible that you may be required to care for someone who's in an institution, a hospital, jail, psychiatric place, church, something like that. Or maybe you might be going to those places. Not saying you're going to get sick, but somehow you end up in a place there. And you also have it where your job is very demanding. People try to make demands and put responsibilities on you. I would tell you to trust your subconscious, trust your intuition. Don't double guess yourself. Don't second guess yourself. Right now, you could be a workaholic using work to avoid introspection, avoid work / relatives, or working for bills when they have like a hobby. I'm sorry, avoiding work or trying to retire. Why did I say relative? You could be just avoiding work or trying to retire, or only working for to pay your bills. That's what I meant to say. And then they maybe work for hobbies, or they work for projects or certain interests, and they might even be attracted to work that leans into those things. It links into hobbies and interests. Now, the other thing, this can also make people ill, or maybe wanting to care for others. Maybe this triggers the charity in you. This is a good time to find hobbies, or find work that may be, like I said, associated very close to a hobby. Or sometimes an illness happens if we have these untapped desires, because the 12th house is subconscious thoughts, and so the 6th house gives us a way to work out our subconscious on an external level. And if you suppress so much, sometimes for some people this makes them very sick. Now, we also have your 6th and the 9th. And so this may trigger travel, teaching. Maybe you want to show people a way of life. Maybe you want to show them how to do something. Maybe you can get sick through travel, because the 6th house can deal with diseases and the 9th house can also deal with travel. And so sometimes we trigger some health issues when we travel. There's also linked to philosophy in the father. Sometimes we have issues with the mother and co-worker, stomach issues, service. We can also be in a service professional trying to offer a service to someone, or interacting with these types of people. We're prosperous. Maybe we can have a good career and a good relationship with the father at the time, and possibly with our kids. We're generous, and maybe even more prone to religion or being interested. This can also trigger the Mars in the 2nd house. I would also tell you to look at the Mars in Virgo video, because all of this travel and possibly even fixing relationship with education, teaching, trying to figure out who you are, trying to figure out your own philosophy, this can sometimes trigger that Mars in the 2nd house. And and maybe this is tied to looking for different partners with different backgrounds or whatever, because again, philosophy, sometimes it gives people an informed way, their own ethics, their own morals of what to do. Leo may be also externalizing this and trying to look out for people who are like this, to try to work it out on a physical level. Again, particularly for the Leo moons, it's maybe issues with women in the public, etc. Very close to actually Cancer moons, because Cancer moons are also kind of sensitive, and I would tell y'all to postpone anything if you can't get it right. I also feel like Leo suns can maybe have a bit of unresolved desires or issues, and possibly maybe some slight identity issues that they may have to work. Through. Okay. But yeah, check out that Mars in Virgo, because that is where you guys will be making the adjustments. So for Leo, you might have to make adjustments in your 2nd house with money, finances, but also your immediate family. So with your father and mother, maybe you change your philosophy. You're trying to get along with people. Maybe you start randomly getting along well with your dad. The mom starts tripping, but good luck, Leo. Alrighty. So Virgo risings, you have your 11th and the 5th, and so here love and you love your friends and they love you, but sometimes there can be issues now, especially since the moon is in Capricorn. Goals can be set in entertainment or creative forms, or maybe creatively setting goals in general. Your children bring you happy now, but there can be issues, especially in the public or social environments. Okay, we also have the 5th and the 8th, and so you are a powerhouse now. You really understand money. You're fun and you're a risk taker, but there can be issues with finances and sex. And you probably need therapy at this time, or some type of deep reevaluation or reformation, because there can be issues or laws around the idea of children. And maybe, I'm not saying your kids are just going to be like something like that. No, but it could even be something like, your children are is like starting a new phase in their life, and maybe that triggers that loss for you too. Like, people have to constantly adjust to people changing. So like, kids go to college, that can sometimes trigger loss, that can sometimes trigger sadness for people, whatever it is. Maybe your children, you realize they're not little babies anymore, or whatever, but it really can trigger just a lot of things mentally around the idea of children. They can be, again, like I said, you're very happy around your children. There's a strong intelligence. This is great for sports, art, and anything with romance, passion, and being in position of power, even fame. But there can be an issue with sometimes a weak willpower. Maybe this comes from our early education, or maybe there's an issue with your own intuition. Maybe you don't trust your own intuition. Maybe you trust other people's intelligence more than your own intelligence. Maybe this stems from an issue with your mom, or just overall a lack of confidence. Either way, all of these issues with, even though you're good at money, there's some type of financial problem, or just the stuff with the children, it triggers that Mars and Virgo in the first house. And so it can trigger, like I said, them accidents, them obstacles. Again, go look back at the video with Mars and Virgo and pay attention to that and try to make adjustments. The adjustments will come by way of yourself though. So that could be the pro a little bit, Virgo, because you're in control. Like, it's not like you have to make adjustments to things that are outside of yourself. At least because it's yourself, you can make the adjustments. Here with the Virgo sun, work can be dangerous, maybe even dealing with life and death situations. Maybe you push yourself too hard, and maybe we get there. Learn to rest and treat illness if it pops up, Virgo suns, especially Virgo suns. Maybe you can have drive based on self-loathing, and you have to learn acceptance. There can be illness due to being too involved in work. Get some individuality, but not too much, because being too much of an individual can make you sometimes not pay attention or be practical. Like, there's too much of like over assertion. Or you could let people play you too. So like, if you're not being too assertive, you're being too passive, and then people are doing whatever they want. There could be issues in authority, loss via self-righteousness. Relax, be considerate, and be thoughtful of others. Learn proper self-sacrifice. What is appropriate self-sacrifice, not inappropriate. Attract people that actually need help. So here's the thing. Helping people is great. Not everyone needs help. Helping people with what you can help them with is great too. We can't help people if we not right neither. Okay, so like I said, this can create some maybe mental disturbances. Maybe you remember something from a childhood experience that it was like really like messed up, or it was just hard for you to emotionally cope with. Maybe it's issues with your mom, issues with money, your own kids, whatever. We can't pour from an empty cup. And so because you're so self-sacrificing, and there's this extreme thing from being an individual to like people dog walking you right now, learn proper amount of giving. And if you don't know, just give to a charity, so that way you don't have to think that much about it, because you are going to attract people that have need, but sometimes that also attracts people who are exploitative. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so due to the exploitation, it can also cause health issues and resentments. Learn that you can't pour from an empty cup, and actually figure out who needs help, not enabling. And that's the best thing I can say for the Virgo suns. Really good luck, y'all. Virgo moons. You are emotionally compulsive at this time and pretty much uncompromising. You try to avoid people. I would tell you to try to avoid, and if you're not already doing this, avoid people pushing agendas or ideals onto you. Sometimes it can be via charm. So you're charming, but maybe they're more charming, you know? You can be enthusiastic to be productive or useful, which can make you a lick, okay? Sometimes being too sympathetic, too helpful, even if they want it or not. So like, okay, I feel like both the sun and the moon are like, they look like they can be exploited here, but I would say the moon can sometimes overly fight and exert itself to be helpful to people and to prove its resourcefulness or like its competence, because Virgos do like to be competent, and they're very I guess you could say demonstrative, like they're very actionary into certain regards, but I feel like we have to learn boundaries, Virgo moon, because if we go too far, we're moving into harassment, bully territory, because they have their choice whether they should get help or not, or whether they will accept your help or not. You know, we don't want to overstep and then possibly put ourselves into situations where we could open ourselves to their hostility to some extent, rightfully so, because it's their business. If they want to struggle or they just want to do it by themselves, that's their business. But also, for some people, it can open you up to treachery because you're putting yourself in a lion's den. So try to see people clearly. Don't romanticize them. You know, don't romanticize relationships, and try to overcome that escapism and flakiness. There may be feelings of shame and guilt until we can demonstrate proper love and care. And so again, maybe we're being kind of overstepping and just overbearing because maybe we want to we're projecting our feelings of shame and guilt onto people, but we're also overstepping maybe their boundaries. And the other end is like, you know, some people are like wolves in sheep's clothing, so keep that in mind. I would tell you, you're also more cautious around trying new things, which could be good to a certain extent. It might keep you from getting exploited. There can be self-pity now, but the good thing is you can inspire people with how dedicated and devoted you are to your task, and I think that's beautiful. But like I said, if you feel like you want to donate, this is for all the Virgo, whatever Virgo placement you got. If you feel like it's on your heart to be nice or kind to someone, do something where you can drop it off and dip, or you can slide it off and just it's less interactions. You can also find charities, you know, there's all these like different charities and nonprofits. Go drop something off, you know, drop some dog food off at the ASPCA, drop some school supplies. Like there's always somebody in need. Like there's no one who does not have no need, you know. If you feel it on your heart to be that devotional, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because we do need compassion, and we do need empathy and sympathy in society. These are real emotions, like having empathy for people, having sympathy, compassion, or just wanting to ease some of the suffering or burdens or give people resources to do better. That's not a bad thing. I just think maybe how Virgo would do it lately, out of their desire to maybe avoid their own form of loss or whatever, it could open them up to more drama. Again, go back and listen to that Mars and Virgo video that I did. Good luck, Virgo. Alrighty, now for my Libra risings. Your 10th is in the 4th, and so maybe you're more attracted to writing, maybe home-based professions. This type of work can also be attached to the earth or land. So like think like geology, real estate, like things that are attached to the ground, or they deal with soil in some type of way. This can also be, like I said, with the career, or maybe you have a reputation. And so with the earth, soil, ground, maybe your career is tied to your hometown. Maybe people know you become notoriety. There it is. Maybe there's some notoriety linked to your hometown or the place of your birth. Maybe you can also work with your parents. This can also trigger a increase of patriotism and just overall a love of home. Now, we also see certain dynamics with the 4th and the 7th, and so partners become important in security. So for some people with hard aspects, we have to prove ourselves by doing things alone. Very similar, I think this was like what, Cancer? I don't know. But some of y'all have certain things in common. But you could be a public person, and even though you're public with some type of either persona or work that you do in the public, like, you may really crave for certain forms of privacy, and maybe few people understand you behind closed doors. If the needs are not met, maybe you can create some emotional issues with others or your home life. Maybe you see like there's some issues with indulgences, issues that center around the mother, whether you're open-minded and generous versus romance and money through your partnerships or more than one relationship in general. Maybe Libras will be cheating. I don't know. But looking for external validation is the main issue here, because this is a destabilization in the 4th house. So the hidden self with external relationships or one-to-one relationships with the 7th. So looking for external validations, which creates more drama in relationships and triggers that Mars and Virgo. We have to adjust Mars and Virgo. Now, if I remember correctly, I think I said for Libras, they could be struggling with lonely dynamics and subconscious issues. So, if we could just tackle that and go look at my Mars and Virgo video and go back to Libra and click on it and see where you have to make these adjustments, a lot of this other stuff gets to be a lot more easier. For Libra suns, it can be delays, low energy, illness, maybe even forms of deception, disillusionment, wounds, trust issues, abandonment, ego, high expectations, and issues with men, kids, and people in authority. Maybe our confidence is lower than normal. We might be getting hit with some unwelcome news. Now, the moon, y'all guys have high expectations too, but you're open-minded, and sometimes you give more than you take. They can create a sensitive nature, which can also go into depression. Okay, or just like this frumpy dumpy low mood. Good luck, my Libras. Okay, so for Scorpio, this is a 9th 3rd house axis too, but it's your 9th house Lord going into the 3rd versus the other way around, like for Taurus. So here, travel and maps are important. Maybe you want to write, maybe you want to communicate your beliefs with people who are far away. You may even want to show people practical ways of how to do things that are less high study. You maybe want to simplify something in your life. You also have it where maybe you want to talk about your job, work, or habits. Maybe you love to talk. Maybe you want to work with siblings or relatives and acquaintances. This might center around vehicles, travel, competition, and sickness, because this starts to ramp up in your daily life. So all of these things, maybe your siblings, relatives, all this stuff becomes more of a daily life where you have to deal with them more often. And maybe you end up working with them with something. Really depends. But there can also be a lack of satisfaction in work if we're not doing the type of work that we want to. I will also see that this is an increased form of competition, slander, and back and forth. So some people, they may have more drama at work. They might be fighting more. They might be arguing more. They're competing with their siblings. They're competing with their cousin. It's just all this drama. I can't really tell you if you're going to use the work to work together with them on the same team, or like, I don't like you at all. Actually, when I see you, we're fighting. So I can't really make that up, because either people want to go out and get it and grind together, or they're going to, have issues with each other. Who knows? But relationships with relatives can go through phases right now. So acquaintances and younger siblings can sometimes be unstable, particularly like the younger they are, right? They can be strong communication and strong artistic skills, but you're frugal and you're strong-minded and you're sensual, versus issues with women, family, and co-workers. Maybe you have stomach problems. This is all linked to service professions. Emotional clashes due to your ambition and how proficient you are at the time. And at times this can go into arrogance, which can also trigger or force you to adjust that Mars in Virgo. I actually, if you're not a Scorpio who's going into way too much arrogance, I would actually say you're being too nice to haters. But go check out that Mars in Virgo, and that's where you have to make the adjustment in your life. So you would, Scorpios was like the 11th house. Making adjustments to older siblings, making adjustments to our friends who we hang around, making adjustments to how we dealing with our earnings from our careers, our goals and our ambitions. Some things might have to get moved around because it creates this clash here. Also, for Scorpio suns may not be as compromising, some issues with luck, but this is great for confidence, great for people in authority, and gives you overall popularity. Excuse me. And understanding of reality. Scorpio moons, you could look good, you could feel good. Again, a little apathetic, indulgent, try some reality, okay? That is pretty much it. I don't think Scorpios is doing too bad, but again, watch out for those haters and check out that Mars and Virgo video for adjustments. Good luck, Scorpio. Alrighty, now for my Sag risings, this is centering around your 8th house, and so your 2nd and your 8th house, and so people support you with words and money. Now I will say, if you're so unresponsible, because this is like the 8th house and the 2nd, because the 2nd deals with money and the 8th house deal with like other people's support, sexuality, etc. Sex can literally cost you money here, because we're merging these houses together, and so you have to maybe reevaluate at this point your self-worth and values. Maybe you can lose self-esteem at this time. Pay attention, Sag. Maybe you can gain through partnership, gain through inheritance, collecting debts. Maybe you're well taken care of because other people will support you. Maybe you have strong views around sex in the 8th house. We also see it where art, acting, writing, creativity of all means, or somehow things that are linked to your voice, like you speaking or whatever, can really play a role now. You value romance and socializing, and you value, parenthood, dealing with children, and maybe you value either through their accomplishment or your creativity accomplishing something, or something you create accomplish something. You could also be pushing your values onto your kids, or pushing values in like merging your values into creativity because you value it, or maybe you just want to do something creative. You could also be pushing it onto lovers, friends, social circles, and this also triggers speculation or earnings from speculations. So here you could be financially well off, educated, sensual. Maybe this is a good family indicator, so everything's going well with the family, well spoken, and have a good voice, versus happy with kids and lovers, intelligent, love of sports, arts, passion, romance, high positions in society. And all of this can cause like conflict with expression, because it's like, yes, you're doing well financially, well off, but then it also can create issues with like people in authority, people that are coming by way of like lovers, socializing, or other creatives, other people who are creatives as well, other people that you felt like were your friends. That also comes out too. Other people that maybe your immediate family. That's neither here nor there. But this causes conflicts by expression. Maybe the expression is serious. Problematic relationships start to arise. Issues with kids can start. Maybe depression, or people who have like low mood. Sometimes it can trigger financial instability. There can be a restlessness, which can trigger Mars and K2. We have to make adjustments here. Now, I will say more often than not, unless there's something spectacular in your own personal chart, like there's something very unique or something else where we're getting like certain malefics and things lining up that's just for you. I'm gonna be real, you kind of very similar to Scorpio and some other placements. I think people are just hating on you in this transit, Sag. I'm gonna be real, they're hating. Unless it's something like you really started. Like, unless it's something you personally started, I feel like hating energy from how this is all set up with the self-expression and everything. I feel like people hating. Okay. Here the sun is for sun Sag people. Again, you guys want to try to compromise, try to take some time with new things, or try to get along with with other people. It could be good for people in authority, but make sure we're not being unrealistic and just try to keep an open mind. But I honestly feel like people just hating. But for the Sag moon, there could be, like I said, issues with men and kids and people in authority. Maybe you're unrealistic. Try to keep open mind. Same there. Same with Sag sun. Y'all both need to learn give and take. But I would say the Sag moon is good for communication with all people. But yeah, you guys try to keep an open mind and just try compromise. But when it's applicable, you don't do compromise when somebody don't like you. You don't do that when somebody doesn't like you. Because this also is your 8th house, Sag, this can also, let me see something really quickly. Yeah, so it deals with the finance, the money, and all the other stuff. Just making sure I read all of your notes. Yeah. But that's pretty much it. Sag, just really try to take it easy. Don't let people, hate on you all day. I mean, I know y'all could be very and for some people intense personalities. Intense personalities, but that doesn't mean that they should be doing those types of stuff. You know, they shouldn't be doing all of that, and just pay attention to your money and your finances and things that do with creativity, because this can also bring up things around like delays with finances, delays in money, things that not go out well like you thought that they would, stuff like that. Let me see. Okay. Now for my Capricorns, you strongly identify with the public and relationships. This is really going to center around you and how well you get along with people, like straight up. So you could be a teacher, maybe you go into entertainment, sales, political areas. This is a strong desire to communicate your feelings and to offer help or care. This is a good time for emotional contact and mutual support, but I wouldn't go too overboard because people might not, it might be too stifling and then they might reject you. So just be emotional just enough. Okay. We also see it with family or focal point. Maybe we have an attachment to the parents, possibly mom, but I'm gonna be real. There are certain zodiac signs where more often than not, their parents are wild, or there's a particular parent that's wild. More often than not, when I see Capricorns, the mother is off the hook. Like wild, like she's very troublemaking, all this other stuff. So it's like a weird foil because Capricorn has like this flatness and the mom is like intense and all over the place. But this is a placement where you either came from a loving home or you didn't, and if you did not, my condolences. You're really trying to learn about family dynamics and how well to get along with people at home and deal with all of those internal issues. Usually this indicates one parent is very strong, supportive, and even dominating, and maybe you're following their footsteps. Home and security is important, and maybe wherever you go is home. This is a strong indicator of strong constitution and enthusiasm, and maybe a facilitating nature. Maybe this can increase how good looking or nice looking you look in working with the public, and just being emotional and passionate versus happy, sensualness, indulgent nature in many friendships, and good relationship with the mother, being generous, open-minded. And maybe this all stems from wanting a different upbringing, a different home or career. This is where we have to do adjustments to Virgo. Maybe we have to make adjustments to our belief system and philosophy, education, or dynamics with the father. Go check out my Mars and Virgo video, because this can really sometimes trigger a love-hate relationship with authority figures and the father, etc. Maybe there can be issues with speaking, education, and maybe people are hating on some of your success, unfortunately, Virgo. This can create for the why did I say that? Capricorn, sorry. Some people are hating on your success, Capricorn. For the Capricorn sign, there could be issues with kids, men, or people in authority. Maybe you're too optimistic. There can be false starts. But I will say, with Saturn sign placements and some of these things, you get what you deserve. So if you work hard and you did what you need to do, you're going to get that. If you messed around, you're going to get that too. Okay? So you messed around, ain't nothing going right. Look, you got to run it back and see what you was doing. Okay? So if you was messing around and you got that, then that's what it is. Okay? There is also a desire to reevaluate yourself, and maybe there can be confusion about who you are as a person. For Capricorn moons, this can be issues with, again, men, authority, children, being too overly optimistic, having too high expectations. Again, weak energy, low energy, pessimism, false starts, and maybe some type of deception, maybe some type of lies. And actually, I feel like that's for both of y'all, sun and moon. Maybe somebody lying, maybe somebody not telling the truth. It's hard to get an answer out of people. Kind of like wonky doodle stuff. Okay. And maybe you'll evaluate all of this and realize that you need a more mutually supporting relationships, and that might even rectify, like, change a lot of things in the home dynamic. But good luck, Capricorn. Good luck. All right, now for my Aquarius, you have the 6 and 12 dynamic, and so this makes you a workaholic. Maybe this even gets you sick. and maybe you work so hard, like I said, you get unwell, but you need to learn how to say no. But understanding that you'll still work hard and then you won't be sick long, and then you'll get back up and do the same thing. You should be careful, Aquarius, because again, sometimes we heal and we recover, and sometimes we don't, and we don't want to trigger serious or chronic illnesses by not taking care of ourselves. The other thing is, maybe you want to work in seclusion, alone, or behind the scenes as a writer or a composer or artist, or anything the hidden and unknown. We also can have hidden and unknown strengths. This can also be good for research, maybe dealing with stuff of like water, biology type of stuff, medicine, counseling. I will also say maybe secret enemies or co-workers, or they try to slander you, or have this weird hidden competition. That's probably why you want to work by yourself anyway. The other thing is, there can be some issues in communications and inner thoughts, or trying to listen. Writers may be prone to writing more, because this also is a placement for writers in one-to-one relationships. You might be a behind the scenes manipulator, maybe a ghostwriter, or maybe there is some type of secret that is revealed at this time, Aquarius. This is also good for communication, travels, and relatives. There may be some delays and challenges in education. You also are more reflective and not prone to moving around as much. There can be emotional problems and issues with making friends. We must make adjustments in Virgo, or we can have accidents and work too hard. Now, some of the issues with making friends can also be against relationships with siblings, relatives, and acquaintances. Some of these competitive dynamics have us go through changes at this point. Have us go through changes at this point. We go through phases. Maybe the phases can be through relatives and siblings. Maybe they're unstable. But this can create very strong communication, artistic skills, and a frugal and strong mind. Maybe you'll move around a lot, etc. For the Aquarius sun, this can be very good for, I would say the Aquarius sun and moon, this would be good for, getting new information, and maybe this can help with emotional detachment. For the moon and the sun is helping with identity. This is great for shopping, socializing, setting up new standards, being romantic and creative, etc., and healing. Now, the communication for both of you might take a hit. For the sun, maybe you think you're always right. For the moon, this can also create arguments with women. This can also have some issues with frustration, accidents, and delays. The sun, really try to keep an open mind. This is a real struggle for you right now, because the ego is out of control. And the expectations are way too high. But yeah, moon, again, try to, if something ain't going to matter long term, let it go. Okay, now that is it. Good luck for my Aquariuses. Now for my Pisces, last but not least, you guys are in this dynamic where you have a loving, generous nature with your friends, your kids, maybe even older siblings. Politics are playing a central role at this time. Maybe you want to host things, maybe have great social skills, and maybe even party it up. But don't party too much, because you can also, party your life away. But yeah, you may end up being a loner, especially if this is harshly aspect for you. And maybe because this is also linked to Capricorn and the moon isn't strong here, that also can be why you end up a loner. You may feel like in order for you to receive love, you have to give something in return, and that is not how the world works. Excuse me. The second thing is that maybe you get into business with friends or older siblings, or in certain organizations, and maybe your values are linked to these things. Your values are linked to your friends, linked to older siblings, linked to whatever organizations you're attached to, and you can be easily influenced right now by your peers. Learn to develop your own talents, your own values, and your own resources ASAP, Pisces. This can also center around having a career in government. There may also be a subconscious fear of poverty or chasing money, whatever. Don't do that. Don't do that. Use this time for introspection, and maybe traveling can also help with introspection as well. You also have it where you can be well off, like where this tension presents is like a well-off dynamic, being educated or coming from a good family or just being well-spoken, versus integrity and success with kids, health and ambition, and reaching your goals via hard work, which can help you make you like ahead of a business or like be in charge of something. But this can create adjustments based off of where your Mars and Virgo is, which is the 7th house, which is relationships with other people, or like challenges in your desires, so this can trigger like issues in what you actually desire, with your personal values and your earnings from career. I don't know if we're having a strong sense of value, since they're easily swayed at this time. Go check out that Mars and Virgo video and see where we have to make adjustments with the 7th house and how we're projecting our desires out to other people in our personal relationships. For Pisces Sun, this is good for dealing with the public, speaking. This is good for men, kids, and socializing and with people of authority. And, overall having a lucky streak and not having too hard of expectations. Now, for the Suns, you may get hit with some unwelcome news. It might not be the best time for shopping, and the communication might not be going well. We could also be having a higher increase of accidents, frustration, and agitation. Okay, now for the Pisces moons, again, super great. You thought the sun was great. It's super great for communication with the public, dealing with women, men in authority, expectations high. But I will say for the moons, it makes you more moody, issues with give and take, not as receptive, increases arguments. It's just hard to have communication go properly because it's such an emotional thing that the more emotional you get, the more issues with communication there is. And try to let things go that don't matter long term, okay? And make sure to check out that Mars and Virgo video to see where you need to make those adjustments. All right, good luck, Pisces. Okay, guys, this is the end of the reading. I'm wishing you guys all the best luck and the best success. I hope everything works out for you. You guys stay safe, and bye.